I'm going to stop you now because I think we are in danger of straying into the...
Okay.
No, that's... I brought you there. But this is a reminder to everyone that the Peter Scott lecture stroke debate is this evening at the Wills Hall. I think it starts at 7 p.m. George will be taking part. Don't miss it. I think we've only got about 5 minutes left, but I'd like to open it up to questions briefly. Apparently this is being filmed, so can you wait until you have a microphone before you ask a question and make it clearly heard by us all, please? So any questions for George Schaller?
I wanted to something brief.
Okay.
No, I just wanted to mention that if anyone is interested in staying in touch with the work that George is doing with Panthera and Alan Rabinowitz and all the other big cat folks, Jessica Craig is here from Panthera's London office. She has some brochures. She has a sign-up sheet for you can get the email newsletter and stay in touch with the Panthera. They're doing some really amazing stuff around the world.
Great, thanks, Tom. That's Tom Veltri, the producer of Nature's Greatest Defender. Tom's film, don't forget, can be seen on Thursday at 1 o'clock in Cinema 1.
Right here.
A question, yeah.
It's very nice to hear your perspective on things. With such a great insight into the state of the natural world, your view on rising levels of consumption, human population and what have you, it would be all too easy to get depressed about everything that's going on, but yet you maintain your enthusiasm, obviously a degree of optimism and a determination to carry on doing what you do. And I'd be interested to hear how you find that strength to keep going, to keep fighting.
Well, an optimist has been defined as someone who thinks that things can't get worse.
Can't get worse or can get worse?
Can't get worse.
Yeah, okay.
Can't get worse.
Yeah, okay.
Then you're an optimist. Hope, hope is an indulgence. You can't sit around and just hope. So I deal in persistence. I pick a certain goal, and I define the goal in my mind. I work with local governments, local officials, and push on that goal. That's why I'm still involved with the Arctic Wildlife Refuge after 50 years. I've worked in China for 30 years, and China has been tremendously receptive in setting up reserves. Throughout northern Tibet, there are now about 250,000 square miles of protected area. There's people living in them, and they need to be managed. But that's an area larger than Germany. So you do see progress, but you cannot turn your back. So you keep persistent on what you believe in.
Any other questions? Yeah, sorry, microphone here.
Hi, my name's Guy from New Zealand. I think I can speak on behalf of everyone when I say just amazing, really inspired by your life's work. One of the things that we've done back home in New Zealand is using film to engage lots of communities around the country, around ownership, around inspiration, and to create action. And I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit more about film's potential and the potential of filmmakers to go beyond just the filmmaking, but talk more about actually engaging local communities and how you've seen that work to create change.
There are a couple of very small organizations that are devoted to making films for local communities. The Brock Institute and Cynthia Moses has her little thing. It needs much more of that type, but with a bigger money, bigger organizations behind it in the countries where they work. I mean, how many Lions films have been done in the Serengeti? How many millions of dollars literally have been spent on that? How much even of the films have ever been seen by the Tanzanian villages? We need your advice on something like that and how that can be built up so local people benefit from those wonderful films.
Well, in fact, I was, with many others here, involved in the Great Apes Film Initiative trying to get great ape films distributed free in the Central African countries and all the range states. But, I think many people are trying to do it. I think it is a question of, pushing that boundary, and it's a sort of, there are a lot of boundaries out there to be pushed. Any other questions? Sorry, I can get a microphone here, please.
I think that we have I keep on, this has been mentioned in little movies that I've done, but we have the technologies, we have the way to be able to move forwards towards a sustainable future. Unfortunately, somehow we're not managing to do that effectively. So I think it's possible to biologically remediate what problems we've put on this planet. And I think more critically at the moment, marine protected areas and terrestrial protected areas are fantastic, but I think most importantly, it's imperative now that we start monitoring pollution more stringently, regulating more effectively, and enforcing in some shape or form, setting down laws that are not wishy-washy and more direct and more simplistic, so that we can set up these reserves so that they are effective and actually do biologically protect the world.
George?
That was a long question.
Could I just jump in briefly and say my understanding of what you're saying is that you're kind of implying we should be doing more to prevent the damage that is already being done. But if that's the case, then surely George's work in identifying what the problems are and what the creatures are that are endangered has to come first.
I completely, wholeheartedly agree. I just think that it's just one facet and one sort of smaller. I feel it's less of a priority now, and I think more effectively, it's about protecting the habitats. I understand. I think personally, I think the science has been done. I think the filmmaking has been done. Now we've got to open Pandora's box in other shapes and forms and start working towards a better future before we might not have a future.
It depends on the willpower of countries. The money is there.
The money
the
certainly
US
is there.
has just wasted $1 trillion on nothing in Iraq. All right, that $1 trillion, just think of what good it could do to a lot of countries. You've got to protect habitat, especially with climate change, because things are going to move. So you've got to protect habitat up the mountain and across so species can move. You've got to compensate people. Payment for ecosystem services, which will take a lot of money but is essential if you protect habitat. You pay, China is doing this in forested areas, you pay people not to have agriculture. And so it's a complicated thing, but with good land use plans and willpower of governments and leaders in governments that are intelligent, let's say, you can do a lot. But point to the number of intelligent leaders in the world.
Okay, I'm going to move on because I think literally we've run out of time. But I'm going to take one last question. If there is one final question from anyone, okay. Can we get a microphone back down this way? Sorry. Thank you. Thanks very much. And okay, sorry. Go ahead.
You mentioned shortly a fact which is. For me and for many other people, the basic source of all problems we have, the excessive multiplying of Homo sapiens. And there is nobody doing anything to get the number of people steady or down. Nobody here cries out. It's all repairing measures we do. We don't fight against the source. I mean, I know we cannot kill people and all that stuff. But there is nothing done, nearly nothing
George?
done.
You want to grapple that one? Overpopulation. Too many people is the problem.
That's the basic one. If there were no people, no problem. I can't solve that one. It'll solve... People will certainly go down in number ultimately, but who knows, the world is quite resilient. But if you wipe out the species, those you're not going to get back. So the world is going to be far poorer in the diversity of its plants and animals, which means there's going to be greater poverty in everything.
I'm just going to make one sort of concluding thought, really, and that is that an element, I think we've all been inspired by what George has said today, and I suspect that the inspiration, the appreciation of what we have and what needs to be held on to has to be an important part of realizing we've got problems and how to begin to solve them. So maybe we should recognize that George has played a huge role in creating this awareness that we now sit here and say, where do we go from here? So I think the first step has to be making people aware of it. And, look at the love he has created for these animals and that we have taken forward and turned into films. I think it happens in stages. And so I think maybe I'll just take this moment to thank you all for coming and to thank George for sharing his life with us, if you like. And I should say also that I think there's another session in here straight away after this. But George, I think, is available to answer more questions or to chat further outside afterwards if you wish to do that. But I'd like to thank Laura Humphreys for producing this session for us. And I'd like to thank George Schaller, who's been the most inspiring person to talk with. Thank you, George. Thank you.